Hello and welcome to Chess Please. My name is Andy and today we're going to be studying a gambit to help us finally win some games against the French defence. It's called the Milner-Barry Gambit and I think you're really going to like it. Let's jump on in. So the Milner-Barry Gambit is named after Englishman Stuart Milner-Barry, not James Milner and Gareth Barry, who it sounds like. Stuart Milner-Barry was a famous chess player but also a code breaker in World War II, and he helped crack the Enigma code and chase the gang back into Germany. So kudos to you, Stuart, for your work here, but probably mainly for your gambit, which we're going to cover off now. So, for those of you that aren't as initiated in the French defence, it is really annoying to play against. It's a kind of a grindy, trench warfare-y sort of opening, and it goes a little something like this. So it starts out e4 from us, class, lovely, attacking. Then they go with e6, and you're like, oh, here we go, French time. So we take as much of the centre as we can. There are other refutations to the French defence, but I don't play them. And they come back with d5, striking their own bit of the centre. I like to play the advanced French, which is where you tuck your little pawn in there on e5, sort of locking it up, and you know, they don't get any play where they can play like e5 themselves. But what invariably happens is that they will advance then with c5, start to put quite a bit of pressure on your d pawn and the d4 square in general. And the game goes like that. So you start to add in defenders as they add on attackers. So we play c3, get a nice pawn chain going. They bring their knight into the game, nice bit of development. We do the same, both in terms of developing the knight and protecting against the threat here on d4. And then they bring their queen into things. And at this stage, I probably want to stop this dance of just adding and removing defenders adding defenders as they add attackers. So, for example, if you bring out your bishop here onto e3, then whoopsie, b2 and a1 are gone. So don't do that. Don't bring your bishop out there and get attacked. But what the Milner-Barry Gambit entails is actually just plonking our bishop here on d3. So it's a lovely little square for the bishop, plenty of flexibility, both directions, and honestly the gambit part is just leaving this pawn behind. Now, there is a very simple trap that black can fall into already and you will win the game straight away. That's not the whole point of the Milner-Barry Gambit. It's just a lovely little cherry on top. And it goes as follows. If they get very, very greedy and they take straight away. So they take here. Taking once is fine. That's probably what's going to happen. You take back. And now they're probably thinking, if they're uninitiated, they might say, okay, well, we've got two attackers and they've only got one defender. They didn't do enough here. They blocked off their queen. So if they take with the knight here, they're thinking, happy days, we're up a pawn. They are not, because what you can just do is take the knight back. And if they try to take back with the queen, if they do this, then they're in big trouble, because this happens. Your bishop moves out of the way with check, pretty crucially, and their queen is undefended. You win the queen, the king can't castle anymore. Like, probably what they'll do is try to block there. And you want to take the bishop first so that you get like a check and they have to move and it's all a whole thing. And then you take the queen and you're away to the races. They'll probably resign there and then on the spot. And that will happen up to a certain point in the rating range. So definitely file that away as a nice little thing with the Milner-Barry Gambit. But as you move up the chains, that's going to happen less and less, which is fine. We're still in good shape here. Okay, so let's say black is a little bit more experienced. They don't fall into the trap of taking this right away and losing their knight, if not their queen and the game. And they play the right move of bishop to d7 here. That's okay, because with the Milner-Barry Gambit, you are still in for an absolute roller coaster ride. It won't be as clear cut that you'll win, but it will be a lot of fun. So I like to prioritize very, very quick development here. And I like to leave this pawn gambited, and maybe even this pawn in a little bit. So in response to this, I would generally just castle. And then if they say, okay, well, if you're going to give me this pawn, I'm going to take a central pawn. And again, that's going to happen a lot of the time. Take back, take the queen here. And from here, there is a lot that can go wrong for black very, very quickly, particularly if they take this pawn. This is not an easy, slam dunk free pawn. It looks like that, and that's probably why they will take it, which is great for us. But what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to bring my knight out to c3, for example. Queen takes in here. And then why we castled earlier on was to make sure that our rook was ready to spring in to e1 here, attack the queen. And very, very quickly, this can go wrong for black, for example. So if they play something like queen back here, then we have to look and see that this pawn is pinned. So let's just pop this on the board. This pawn is pinned. Knight takes in here. We get one of the pawns that we've gambited away with a lot of tempo. And all of a sudden, like the queen is going to move, you know, back here, for example. The pin still exists. Look how far away black is from casting. Like 1, 2, 3 moves, including casting, to get out of there. And no great squares really for its pieces to go. Whereas for us, on the other hand, we do have 3 pieces in the game already, or off their home squares, let's say. The queen ready to spring in, has a ton of open air to work in. In general, our plan from here is going to be get this bishop out to f4. That's where it's really going to be at home. That's going to be largely open in any French defense game because of the nature of black's pawns. But particularly in this one, f4 is an absolutely gorgeous square for our bishop. That will facilitate our rook coming onto the c file here, controlling here, putting a huge amount of pressure on this square. And generally, I would see the queen having a pretty nice life, maybe somewhere here on maybe g4, maybe even h5, or alternatively f3, where it can attack weaknesses along here at a given moment. It can jump on in like this. And with everything else being in the mix, it can just add so much pressure to black's position. So very quickly, from a position of trench warfare where black was going to slowly build up the pressure and start marching up the board, they're completely on the black foot. Yes, they have an extra pawn. That's fine. That's why we need to keep the gas going. So again, bishop in here to f4, rook across here, queen somewhere here on the king side, knight ready to spring into c7 there and cause all sorts of messing. And yeah, pretty quickly, yes, you're going to be down a pawn, but it's going to be worth it. So that is the Milner-Barry Gambit. It is a great weapon. Again, we can win really, really quickly with that opening trap that I showed you. If not, we can have an absolute blast getting our pieces out in about 10 moves and hammering at the door of black. And if they can defend it, they can defend it, happy days. But I would say a lot of games they won't defend it accurately. So I'm going to go away, going to try and get a little bit better. If I do play any good games where this crops up and we end up harvesting a load of ELO points against the French, I'll let you know and we'll cover them off on the channel. But that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to start playing the Milner-Barry Gambit yourselves and see how you get on. All the best. Thank you very much.